Now, more than ever,
we need to continue the fight for justice.
And the rights of First Nations people.
we need change.
Connection.
Respect. Equity. Truth-telling.
We need reconciliation.
Now, more than ever, National Reconciliation Week. Authorised by Reconciliation Australia Limited, Canberra.
My name is Billy and I am a Grade 11 emerging leader as well as a proud Panai woman. Here to co-host with me is Ryan and we will be your host for today's assembly. This year's theme for reconciliation is Now More Than Ever, which encourages all to come together as a community. I welcome our guests from our First Nations Advisory Committee and parents and friends attending in person and online.
Good morning all. My name is Ryan and I am an ambassador for the Grade 11 cohort. Equality for all and inclusiveness is so important for everyday life because we are a community. We should recognise and respect everyone's heritage and background. Reconciliation is all about strengthening relationships between Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and non-Indigenous Australians for the benefit of all.
For First Nations peoples, it is a chance to be acknowledged and to share culture, especially at school. To begin our assembly today, I now welcome our Community Captain Tani along with Georgia to acknowledge country.
We would like to start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land, the Wulgurukaba, and pay our respects to all Indigenous people present here today, now more than ever.
We would like to further acknowledge that Australia is a place of long history and rich culture, and through reconciliation, we come together today to celebrate Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander culture.
Now more than ever. For Indigenous Australians, we must remember to fight for justice and the ability to stand up and be proud of our culture. Now more than ever, we need to come together as one nation and one community to remember,
to celebrate,
and together embrace Australia as our home.
Thank you for that meaningful acknowledgement of country. We will now ask Peyton and Lily to lead us in prayer.
We start this prayer in the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. Creator of all, during this Reconciliation Week, we come before you with open hearts and minds, seeking understanding, healing and unity. Grant us the courage to confront the truth of our history and the strength to work towards a future built on justice, equality and respect for all. Guide us as we walk the path of reconciliation, helping us to listen, learn and grow together as one community.
May this week be a time of reflection, dialogue and meaningful action, as we strive to honour the dignity and rights of all peoples, and to create a society where reconciliation is not just a word, but a living reality. In your name we pray, Amen. Stay with us, Lord. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you, Peyton and Lily. As we prepare to join in our national anthem, please stand quietly and respectfully. Please join in our ladies in singing our national anthem.
please be seated. We now call on Candy to share her thoughts with us.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our celebration of Reconciliation Week today. And you've watched the video, and you've heard our beautiful prayer talking about now more than ever. I just want to talk to you a little bit about what that actually means. So what does now more than ever mean? It actually means that you understand what came beforehand so that you can do more now more than ever. So when we talk about reconciliation, the video talked about equity, justice, truth-telling, and understanding what it is that we're talking about that we need to tell the truth about. It's actually asking us to understand what our history has been so that then we can do something about it. Otherwise, the words now more than ever just don't mean anything. And so when I was preparing for this, I was thinking, where do I get my information from? We're a school, right? So what our core business is to teach and for you to learn. We do all of the extra beautiful things, but that's actually the mission of any school. And as a Catholic school, we actually think about, are we doing the right thing by people according to Jesus and the Jesus story? And it made me think, well, where do we get our information from about First Nations history? And I did a search. I did a search on Facebook. I did a search on some of the major newspapers around the place. And I actually found some really disturbing things. I found some things that are not being as gracious and as fulsome in their language to our First Nations people as we know that it should be. All these headlines. The headlines are saying certain things about First Nations people. They're saying certain things about wanting us to believe in that story. And I was a bit ashamed. I read the papers, I read the headlines, I'm on Facebook, I have a look at TikTok, believe it or not, and all of those types of things, I don't think they're telling you the story we need to hear as a Catholic school. As a nation, I don't think they're telling us the right story. So I felt really empowered today to actually get rid of the speech that I had prepared, and to get up here and actually say, we're a school, our whole job is to make you think. It's actually to make you think around what makes a really good person when we're talking about Reconciliation Week and now more than ever. Where are we getting our information from? Is our school giving you the right information? And if we are you actually open to hearing it because of all of the barrage of other stuff that's coming at you from the media? So my dream and my hope today is now more than ever, when you see those headlines, when you see those TikTok little clips come up, think about, is that true? Is that a true representation of First Nations people? And if you think it's not true, where do you go to find the answers? The adults around you in this room, there's hundreds of us. We actually have our own answers too. But go digging for the answers. Please don't stick with the headlines, because I really believe it's giving you an idea and an opinion that's not correct. So now more than ever, it's time for you to be thinking people. You will be the men and women of the future that look after me. When I'm old and crusty and all those sorts of things, it will be you I look to be the moral compass. And if there's anything that I think our college can do, is to give you that moral compass bearing, to be able to say, we're not just going to believe the headlines, we can do better than that as Ryan Catholic College students. So now more than ever, think about those headlines. Is it true or not? That's my reflection on this week's assembly theme for Reconciliation Week. It's our job. I'm just going to end here on a bit of a sad note, to be totally honest. This is my last day, actually, at Ryan Catholic College as your principal for the next 6 months. I'm not sure whether your parents have actually told you, but I did want to mention this to you this morning. So, now more than ever, sometimes people see something in you and say, look, we need your skills somewhere else for a little bit of time, please. So I was literally tapped on the shoulder to say, Candy, can you please come over to Townsville Catholic Education Office for 6 months and help us? Help us with a new project. And even though being in schools is actually all I know, that's the only thing I've ever done in my whole life, has been working with schools and children, I said yes. I said yes to the challenge for 6 months. So it's not a goodbye, it's more of, listen, I need you to keep the level of thinking and learning up. I really want to be able to look at our Facebook reels and be able to see exactly what's been going on in the 6 months. And when there are special events, I still want an invitation, please. All right? So for the next 6 months, the school is going to be led by 2 acting co-principals. So for Year 7 to Year 12, Shane Harrison will be acting principal. And for Prep to Year 6, it'll be Paula Duffy. Okay? Someone said to me, Candy, it takes 2 people to replace you. And I said, no, not at all. They were the people doing all the good work anyway. So look, my best wishes to you over the next 6 months. Let's continue our assembly. But the only thing I want to hear in the community when I'm going about is, gee, these Ryan students are still showing the way in all of our Catholic schools in our diocese. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Thank you, Candy, and we wish you well in your time at the Catholic Education Office. For 9 years in a row, our college has entered and been selected to represent North Queensland at the National Schools Constitutional Convention. We prepare a speech in collaboration with a team of 4 that then competes at North Queensland level. The top 4 presenters are then invited to the National School Constitutional Convention in Canberra. Last term, our Year 12 student was invited to be part of this delegation. I would now like to invite Georgia to present her speech in an amended voice to the topic. Chapter 9, Recognition of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Peoples. 129 Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander voice in recognition of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples as the first peoples of Australia.
The 29th National Schools Constitutional Convention was an opportunity for young leaders of tomorrow to come together and to discuss solutions to problems within the Australian Constitution. Now, my experience at this was truly like no other. I was given an opportunity to speak for those isolated, like ourselves here in regional communities, those who are less fortunate, and those who more often than not do not have a voice. Now, I'm just going to come out here and say this topic is quite difficult for me to stand up here and talk about. This is something that for many, including myself, has had impacts that are so strong and are so immeasurable that it's difficult to put them into words, but I'm still going to try to today. We gather here today during National Reconciliation Week, a time where we reflect on the shared histories, cultures, and achievements of this wonderful multicultural nation that we live in. Now, more than ever, we consider the impacts of our own actions so that we can move forward together in our journey towards reconciliation. Now more than ever, it is up to us to come together, to unite, and to reflect on our history for the future of our nation, the healing of our culture, and for the hope that we've now been afforded to build a better, stronger relationship between worlds currently divided. In 2023, Australians were asked to approve a referendum that would edit the Constitution to create an Indigenous voice to Parliament. Now, this was a pivotal movement in our reconciliation journey, and we carried this out with the intent to promote justice and a greater say in the decisions that directly affect the lives of First Nations peoples. Although millions of Australians voted yes to approve this referendum, it was ultimately unsuccessful. Through the campaigning and voting processes for this event, Australia was very quick to uncover many of the hidden divisions within our society. Last year, I, alongside 3 other students from Ryan, were invited to compete at the Regional Schools Constitutional Convention here in Townsville. But we wrote our speech in an environment where we were divided into yes or no. And now we live in a world where we are divided into yes or no. But there's actually something that a lot of people seem to have forgotten. And this is not just about the referendum, this is about reconciliation in its entirety. And that is that This was always so much bigger than yes or no. In the midst of trying to figure out what we were going to vote for in this referendum, we lost the point of what it was actually trying to achieve. We got distracted from its true purpose, and in doing so have further divided the people of this nation, leaving more work to be done in order to achieve reconciliation. White or black, yes or no, we have repeated the events of histories. Families, friends, and communities have all been torn apart by this referendum. When we look at the referendum, we have to look at what we were trying to do in the first place. This was supposed to be a step towards permanent change, a step towards reconciliation, not away from it. It was supposed to unify us, but instead we found ourselves entangled in severe conflict with each other. What we have experienced as a nation makes it abundantly clear that we have to move forward from this together, and we need to have a period of truth-telling and healing so that we can reset. Now, more than ever, is the time to act. The referendum wasn't meant to be something that separated us into the two worlds of yes and no. It was meant to be a new way to seek justice. This was a way for us to have a broader commitment to coming together as one nation. Now more than ever, it is up to us to move forward, to make change, and to reconcile. Thank you.
Thank you, Georgia. That is certainly a strong message and voice from the youth of today. The Year 9 English students explored the various ways that writers use poetry to express their feelings and make meaning of the world. The students were asked to explore the theme of loss. One of the Year 9 students, Diaz, created a poem on loss of land and culture from a First Nations perspective. We hope you enjoy the recording, as Diaz could not be here to present it.
Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, please be aware that some resources may contain voices and images of deceased persons.
Nora Wandera Nayugatil Diaz, and today I'm going to be sharing my poem, I Have Lost My Land. I have lost my land, I don't quite understand. They took us from our mothers just because we don't have the same skin as others. As I watch them taking over our beloved Mother Earth, they just don't know how much it's worth. To wake up and hear the animals talking, past elders walking, or the birds squawking. My tears are like a waterfall down my face. Isn't this just a total disgrace? I don't even know one single cultural dance. I haven't even gotten to see it for a glance. To not being recognised in the referendum, to being number one on their agenda. Can't you see I have no voice? Can't you see I don't have a choice? Expected to reform and be respectful, but now I'm left feeling resentful? This didn't happen incidentally, as they used us experimentally. The loss has impacted Indigenous identity. Are we not an entity? We are supposed to be reconciling, but you're racially profiling, putting our people in mission schools, then being taught your rules. The government said sorry, but why do we still worry? This chapter in our life has become a living nightmare, waiting and waiting for it to turn into thin air. Families never getting to see each other, all this time we had to suffer. They say it was as lost as the past, and wrapping it up like a cast. No more slavery, it comes as being racially. All this hurt inside, all this loss of pride. Loving is like kisses and hugs, not just seeing shrugs. We need equality, just this simple policy. As our culture may be lost, we try not to be soft. I may be black and proud, it has never been avowed. I have lost my land, but you just don't understand.
Thank you for that very inspiring presentation, Diaz. Every year we look for a guest speaker who will inspire our audience, and today we are thrilled to have Ben Gertz. He is a born and bred Townsvillian and a descendant of the Gugubardan and Ngarrindjeri people of North Queensland and the Merian people of the Eastern Torres Straits. Ben went to the Marion Primary School and Ignatius Park College and did some study at James Cook University. Since then, he has spent most of his professional working career working in numerous policy and stakeholder engagement roles between Townsville, Brisbane and Mount Isa, including some time working as a political advisor to ministers in the Queensland Government and working in Parliament House in Canberra. Ben currently works as a Senior Associate, Indigenous Outcomes at the Northern Australia Infrastructure Facility. In addition to his full-time work, Ben serves as the Deputy Chair of the Queensland Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Foundation and sits as a member of the Healthy Water Traditional Owner Technical Working Group for the Great Barrier Reef Foundation. Please welcome Ben to share his thoughts with us on this year's theme.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, students. First of all, before I continue, I'd just like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land which we meet on today, the Gurrum Bilbara Walgurukaba people of Gurrum Bilbara and Yumbinan, Gurrum Bilbara meaning Townsville, Yumbinan meaning Magnetic Island. I'd also like to acknowledge the Nawagi people, the Bindal people, and my own mob, the Gugabardan people. All four tribes make up the traditional custodians of the city of Townsville. And also like to pay respect to their continuing connection to culture, land and sea in our region. As it was being introduced, my name is Ben Gertz. Before I tell you a bit about my story, you probably need to understand the story about people come before me. I'm descendant of a father my father's father is a Gugabardan man from Greenvale, or the Valley of Lagoons, inland of Ingham. My father's mother is a descendant of the Nudgee people, rainforest people from beautiful places like Malanda and Mount Baldwin, Lake Eacham. If you ever swam there, that's my traditional country. And my mum's mum is a descendant of the Meriam people from Murray Island, or Mer, in the eastern Torres Strait. My grandmother, Patty Lees, my mum's mum, she was born in Cairns to a Torres Strait Islander mother. And at the age of 9, she was taken away from her mother and put onto the dormitory, and where she was living in the dormitory on Palm Island. She was forcibly taken by the Queensland Police Service at the time, and then placed into the dormitory in the care of the state. So she spent most of her formative years from the age of 9 till the age of 18 as part of the stolen duration as living in the dormitory on Palm Island. My dad's grandfather, my great-great-grandfather, Richard Houlihan, Dick Houlihan as he was known locally here in Townsville, he was a Gugabardan man who was who first grew up as a horse breaker and a stockman on the Valley Lagoon station inland of Ingham. And my great-great-grandfather, when he was working, back then they were promised a wage. But then at the same time, what would happen was that the wage would then be given to a bank account that was managed by the state of Queensland. And when he'd go to the police station to actually try and collect any money, they'd often say, no, it's all, there's issues here, or no, we can't give you money today. But it didn't just happen to him. Across the state, it happened to thousands of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, and they worked under what was called the Act. Even though technically they were paid a wage and given a wage, the wage actually never made it into their hands. And even to this day, a lot of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander L people are still fighting to actually access the money that was never given to them for the many years they were working in particularly when they were working under the Act. So for me, I think growing up, given that my grandmother was a member of the stolen generation, my great-great-grandfather and even many other members of my family worked under the Act, part of the particularly for stolen wages. I guess growing up, I was always very much instilled with a sense of injustices that have occurred to my own family. So getting to my story, I was actually born literally just around the corner from here at a hospital that doesn't exist anymore. You might know now as the Curlin Health Campus, but back when I was born on the 20th of June 1990, so my birthday is in about 2 weeks, I was born at the Curlin Women's Hospital. But I grew up in a little suburb called Aikenvale, and I grew up in a little street called Pugh Street. Went to school at a Catholic school called Marion Catholic School in Currajong, and in high school went to a school around the corner to Ignatius Park College in Cranbrook. I've actually spent a bit of time here in Ryan, again being a Catholic schoolboy myself. Used to come here and basically actually played again. I used to play a few Ryan boys when I used to play for Brothers Rugby. Used to come here for debates. Used to come here, particularly when I was in primary school. Marion had a cultural dance troupe. Used to come here and perform at Ryan quite regularly for National Reconciliation Week and for NAIDOC Week. So it's not my first time coming to speak or perform for you all here National Reconciliation Week event. But yeah, as mentioned before, so growing up in the family I grew up in, growing up in Aikenvale, particularly when I was born, my dad was the sole income earner. Me and my two brothers used to share the same room. We grew up in very sort of meagre sort of very working class sort of means, and I think growing up in sort of that sort of environment with the sort of injustices that happened in my own family, with the sense of cultural identity that had growing up, I knew from a very young age that there were things in this world that just weren't right. And I always had this burning passion and desire to make sure that those things that weren't right were changed, or that we'd always make sure that those injustices would be righted. So from a very young age, I used to write. At the age of 8, we used to have the city of Townsville and the city of Forangow back in the time. So this used to be the Forangow side of Townsville. We had 2 mayors. We had a guy named Tony Mooney, and we had another gentleman here in Forangow called Les Tyrrell. And I used to, at the age of 8 or 9, I used to actually write them letters to talk to them about issues affecting our community and our city. And I'd come with some outrageous proposals like building a new shopping centre in the middle of Willows, or opening international air routes to other parts of Asia or the rest of the world. But equally, I think from a very young age, I always knew that political activism in particular was a pathway that I wanted to go down, and as a pathway that I saw myself engaging in. When I was at Ignatius Park College, in particular, I joined, at the age of 14, joined the Townsville Youth Council, and got to work very closely with then Mayor Tony Mooney at the time, and a lot of councillors. Worked with other, about 20 other young people between the age of 14 and 25 across our city. Fixing things up like skate parks, basically making sure that we ran the National Youth Week events that used to happen. Again, we just want to make sure that our community was a better place, and particularly for people of your age as well, making sure that you were catered in the community. And with that too, when I was 17, you heard from George there before, and George, I just want to say I hope you had a good experience at the National Schools Constitution Convention, because I too, at the age of 17, went down to represent North Queensland at the National Schools Constitution Convention. I think for me, for something else that I'll quickly talking about the theme very shortly, my experience, particularly at the National Schools Constitution referendum, at the National Schools Constitution Convention, really served me for what was to happen, particularly at the end of last year. I didn't realise at the age of 17 that this would be very valuable insight and skills that would be required for something that happened at the end in October 2023. But often you'll find that sometimes life works in mysterious ways. Coming to the theme of this week for National Reconciliation Week, now more than ever, I think it's very hard pressed not to talk about the referendum. I think, given that we're 7 months out from that result that happened in October 2023, I think it proved. I think it's one of those things where, particularly for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, we now have to work twice as hard to make sure that we see change, or make sure that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander issues are brought to the forefront. At the same time, though, despite the fact that even though we now have to work twice as hard, or even think even harder, think sort of smarter and even more strategic as a result of that referendum result, equally, as I'll also talk to you a bit further in this discussion, the work never stops. When I was asked to come to talk today, I think some people sort of mentioned my activism and experience in sort of working in particularly in politics and various other things in the communities. But to me, activism is something that my grandmother did. Activism was something where, particularly for a girl who grew up in the dormitory on Palm Island, who was told that she was never good enough, she was too white to be black or too black to be white. She at that age, particularly back in the 60s, she had to kick down the door and actually try and really had to fight for what she wanted to get. Fast forward to to now 2023, I've had a very varied career where for the most part in a lot of the times of my job I wear a suit and tie. I used to work for ministers and senators. I used to brief the Premier. You end up working for very senior politicians in Brisbane and Canberra. I meet with in my current job, I even meet with CEOs and very senior private sector business individuals on a regular basis. I often sit in boardrooms. I often will front up in events like this, and so to say I'm an activist is just something that doesn't sit right for me. I think the preferred term that I like to use is an advocate, and I would love to talk about a lot of the advocacy that I've done over the years. But equally at the same time, I think particularly later in life, I think even though I often reject the sort of the methods that my grandparents or my great-grandfather or even some of my old elders and aunties and uncles used before me. I think, particularly what happened last year as well, I think it made me realise that there are still things that sometimes you have to kick the door down for. As I mentioned before, despite being born and raised here in Townsville, I had the opportunity to go down to Brisbane and work for senior ministers in the Queensland government. Used to brief people like the Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk. We have people like Aaron Harper around the corner here in Foreign-Gower. Used to work very closely with people like him. And in the particular field that I used to work in was Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander policy. And I think when I was working in Brisbane, it was a very important time for me because, as I mentioned before with my great-great-grandfather, Dick Houlihan, we reopened the stolen wages account. So we allowed Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here in the state to actually, and even descendants of those who have deceased, to basically claim some of the money that was owed to them many, many years ago. And I think that was a very important thing to me as someone who had multiple people in my family who were affected by the Act and had their wages taken from them. So to move down to Brisbane and work on something as important as that, something that means that is very near and dear to my family, was probably one of my proudest achievements. And then and even like had a very experience working in places, and going to work in places like Canberra. Spent a bit of time in Parliament House down there. I used to work for senators. Got funny photos with the Prime Minister. It was a lot of. I think that's the thing. When you walk around a place like Parliament House, particularly in Canberra, it's a very large building, and you never understand the sheer scale of it until you actually get to be inside of it. But equally, I think you feel like a very insignificant part of something that's very larger that affects affects everyone across our country. That's the halls where our laws and our legislation, everything is all made, and to walk around in a big building like that is a massive privilege as well. I moved back to Townsville just before COVID. After 4 years living down south, I as much as I enjoyed living in Brisbane, living in Canberra, even did a bit of stint out of Mount Isa, I wanted to come back home because Townsville is home. A lot of my friends and family still live here. My parents still live here. Most of my brothers still live here. And even I think at the same time when I did move back, I think this thing called COVID-19 happened a few months later. It just happened that I was a bit too much of a wuss and being homesick. It wasn't so much the pandemic that brought me back, but equally a lot of my old friends and family also come back as well because they were stuck in lockdowns in Sydney. But at the same time, when I moved back home, I decided that I want to make sure that the place I grew up in is I want to leave the place that we grew up in a better condition to how we left it. And I never had this burning desire to leave Townsville. I wanted to move down to Brisbane and spend time because it was something that you can't do here in Townsville. You had to move away to do it. But equally, at the same time, it brought skill sets and other sort of opportunities that enabled me to sort of come back and work towards making our community a better place. So when I got back, I got heavily involved in a lot of local politics, and again working for people, working for a lot of local politicians up here, working on a lot of political campaigns. But for a very long time, I've managed a lot of political campaigns up here in Townsville. But particularly at the end of last year, we ended up having the opportunity to have the first referendum that we had since 1999, the first referendum in 24 years. Referendums in Australia, there's only been about 49 of them now. And they don't happen as frequently as elections, or everyone's very used to voting a state election or a federal election or even a local election, voting for your councillors or your state MPs or your federal MPs. But a referendum is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And I think for me, I got asked to have the opportunity to work on the National Yes campaign, and particularly lead a lot of stuff here in the state. But equally, I was pretty much settled here back home. I really enjoy the current job that I'm doing. And it was one of those things where I thought, look, I'm better placed in my own community and better placed to manage a lot of the stuff here. So in July 2023, I ended up accepting to become the Yes campaign manager for Herbert for Yes, Herbert being the federal seat here in Townsville. And for 4 months we we built up a team of about 200 volunteers. We stood at Cotter's markets and Willows markets every Sunday. We used to we letterboxed about 40,000 flyers around the community. And equally, on the referendum day itself, we had a team of volunteers who were there at every polling booth, every school, every community hall, every church, basically handing out pamphlets to advocating in favour of Yes vote. In the end, Herbert was one of the worst performing electorates in the country. Out of 24% of people ended up voting yes. The only booth that we ended up winning was, the yes vote ended up winning was on Palm On. And I think one of the key things I tried to talk about during the campaign with a lot of people was that, if a community like Palm On, is crying out for something like The Voice and believes that The Voice was, and believes that The Voice will improve their livelihoods in their own community, it ended up serving as a bit of a moral victory for us. But unfortunately, we fell very, very, very short here in Townsville. And I think, when you suffer something like that, a massive defeat like that, particularly when you served in a very forward-facing role as a face of campaign for 4 months, it's very hard not to feel like the burden had fallen on you, or that the onus, or that you let people down. But equally at the same time, there's opportunity in that as well. Where to from here? Despite the fact that, I think I'm getting told to wrap up, very sorry. Despite the fact that the referendum result, particularly here in Townsville, was such a crushing defeat, there's still opportunity that I believe has come out of the referendum result too. As was introduced in my bio, I'm the Deputy Chair of the Queensland Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Foundation. The Queensland Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Foundation provides education scholarships to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students across the state. And in this room right now, there are 20 of you that are QATSF recipients. Hands up if there's anyone who's a QATSF recipient? Yep, there we are, excellent. I have to come talk to you very soon. Particularly my passion is Indigenous education, making sure that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander kids are getting the best opportunities they possibly can. And I'm reflecting on the fact that when I was in grade 12 here at Iggy Park in Townsville, 61% of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander kids only made it to year 12 back in 2007. That number has now improved to about 74%, so there's still a lot more work to go to make sure that the gap, and particularly in education, between Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander graduates closes. And that's where I think, particularly work that I do with things like QATSF is very important. At the end of the day, whether the referendum was successful or not, the work never stops. I think there's a fallacy in a lot of modern political movements that, just because you win the big battle doesn't mean that, that the work ends. The work always continues no matter what happens, whether it's a successful or an unsuccessful result. And equally, but at the same time, it's now an opportunity for us to change tack, probably think more locally. And for myself, I'm 33 years old. For most of you here, I'm almost twice your age, or pretty much twice your age. I'm probably younger than most of your teachers here, or I'm just as old as maybe your youngest teachers here as well. There's still a lot of time and energy that I still have to make our community a better place, and that's what gives me the drive and determination to make sure that, particularly post-referendum, that we're making sure that through things like QATSF, through things like my work with the Great Barrier Foundation, even through my full-time job at the Northern Australia Infrastructure Facility, when we build some big projects here in Townsville, we make sure that people get jobs, Indigenous businesses get opportunities to tender. Just making sure those things help to improve the livelihoods of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here in our community. I want to thank you very much for your time today. Hope you have a good National Reconciliation Week, and thank you again for the opportunity.
Thank you, Ben. There's definitely some food for your thought from your speech today. As a small token of our appreciation, please accept this gift from the college. Thank you. Thank you. We have our own College Reconciliation Action Plan, or RAP, and here to give us an update is Johanna and Darryl.
Good morning, everyone. Today we'd like to talk about the importance of a Reconciliation Action Plan, or RAP, for our school community. A RAP is a formal statement of commitment to reconciliation between Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and non-Indigenous Australians. It outlines the specific actions our school will take to foster respect, to build relationships, and to create opportunities for First Nations peoples. Reconciliation is about acknowledging the rich culture and history of First Nations Australians and addressing the injustices and disadvantages they have faced. In the context of our school, a RAP is not just a document, it is a roadmap for how we can contribute to a more inclusive and equitable society. Implementing a RAP promotes cultural awareness and understanding among students, staff and families. By integrating First Nations perspectives and knowledge into our curriculum, we help students appreciate the significance of Australia's First Nation heritage. This education fosters mutual respect and breaks down stereotypes, which is essential for creating a harmonious and respectful community. Secondly, a RAP encourages meaningful engagement with First Nations communities. It opens pathways for collaboration and dialogue, allowing us to learn directly from Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. This engagement will enrich our school environment and ensure our efforts towards reconciliation are authentic and impactful. Furthermore, a RAP highlights our commitment to equity and justice. It sets out our actions to support First Nations students and staff, ensuring they feel valued and respected. This commitment can include providing professional development for teachers on cultural competency, celebrating significant dates such as NAIDOC Week, and creating spaces that reflect First Nation cultures.
A reconciliation action plan is vital at Ryan Catholic College because it fosters respect, promotes understanding and supports equity. By committing to a RAP, we take significant steps towards a future where all Australians, regardless of their background, can thrive together in mutual respect and harmony. In 2024, our RAP committee has already achieved the following. Our college RAP has been approved, a poster was printed and laminated for distribution to pastoral care rooms this week. We have committed to students and staff attending the NAIDOC Week March in Term 3. We have exciting plans for our NAIDOC Assembly in Term 3. This is the first time that NAIDOC Week has fallen in school term and we are excited. Some students and staff artwork being worked on in the college is in progress. Motivated and dedicated staff and students are working in this space. Native plants are going to be planted at the JC on Ryan Day. Staff are continuing to work on cross-curriculum priorities being integrated into our units for version 9 of the Australian curriculum, which is taught from prep to year 10 at our college in all schools. Staff have attended cultural capability professional development, and there is more professional development in planning for 2024 and beyond. Thank you to the amazing efforts of the RAP committee members and all staff and students that are engaged in bringing our RAP to life in Ryan Catholic College. One of our RAP initiatives across Peter VI this week is Special Star of the Week Awards to commemorate National Reconciliation Week. This is so that we can celebrate our students showing these 3 values of including others in the playground or activities, staying strong when faced with challenges, and standing up for others to stamp out bullying. We now call on Paula to give out these awards for students in years 5 and 6. If we can hold our applause until each of the criteria that we're calling up are standing in the front of the stage with Paula, that would be appreciated. The first criteria, including others in the playground or activities, from Year 5, Harrison Parker. Just hold your applause till the end, guys, please. Fletcher St. George. Kaylin Burns. Charlotte Nielsen. Indy Burling. Sire Matthew. Calissa Townsend. And from Year 6, William Chown. Jack Balcomere. Misha Darby. Cooper Newley. And Luca Lewis. If we can please congratulate these students. And if you can now follow off stage to your left, or off the front of the stage to your left, follow Hayley for a photo. For criteria 2, staying strong when faced with challenges, from Year 5, Kyla Kipping. Will Duncan, and Bailey Muir. And from Year 6, Shelby O'Connor, Grace Flanagan, Lara Malcolm, Grace Noir, and Aliyah Brown. Please congratulate these students. Just follow off to the left there, Year 5 and 6, and follow Hayley for a photo, please. Now, final criteria, criteria 3, standing up for others to stamp out bullying. We have 2 here for Year 5 and 6. One from Year 5, Jackson Matthews. Let's give him a round of applause. He's making a big effort here. Good on you, Jackson. And from Year 6, Ariana Schaefer. Okay, let's congratulate these students as they move off for a photo. I'll now call Billy back up to address you.
This year, in the lead up to Reconciliation Week, we had yarning circles which were open to friends. During our yarning circles, we did a quiz in pairs with a friend that tested both First Nations students and friends' knowledge on First Nations trivia. I am sure that new things were learned and a great time was had by all that attended.
Another activity was at home base that saw some traditional weaving being taught and practiced. We have put together a video which we'll play to capture this great spirit of reconciliation.
Over the last few weeks, as a First Nations person, it has been great to see students from every background enjoying and experiencing our beautiful culture through weaving.
When hosting activities in home base, the goal is always to invite the community in to have shared experiences with each other. Opening up our makerspace sessions to host the weaving workshops allowed students to immerse themselves in traditional culture. But what I loved most about these sessions were the kids from all year levels coming together, having a yarn and enjoying some downtime with each other.
What I most enjoyed about weaving was the profound sense of connection and peace it brought me. Engaging in this ancient craft allowed me to slow down and focus on the rhythmic and meditative process of intertwining threads. In a world where we often feel disconnected and rushed, weaving offered a rare opportunity to be fully present and to be mindful. From a well-being perspective, weaving is incredibly therapeutic. This creative outlet provided a mental break from my daily stresses, leaving me feeling a sense of relaxation and a mental clarity.
I think students got lots out of the weaving, the First Nation weaving that we did over the last few weeks. There has been lots of different students coming into this space. Some students have come every week, but the talking that happens, the communication, the sharing of ideas, and even when they're learning and somebody else will help them how to start the weaving and things like that, has been really good, very positive.
Weaving is not just an activity, it is way more important than that. Weaving also fosters a sense of community, sharing techniques and stories with others who appreciate the craft creates bonds and encourages mutual understanding. In these times, building such connections is more important than ever. Weaving is a powerful metaphor for reconciliation. Each thread represents individuals and communities coming together to create something stronger and more beautiful. This shared experience reinforces the value of empathy, respect, and unity, which are essential for healing and progress in our society. And this concerns all of us.
The art pieces will come together representing how even though we are from different cultural backgrounds and races, we are all connected and on this journey together.
How good was it to see that happening at our school? The next part is from a Year 11 Religion and Ethics class, my RE class. I will hand over to my classmates Jessica, Sirith and Mackenzie.
Thanks, Ryan. So this term we explored closing the gap and we started off with First Nations belief systems. While studying this topic, we also looked at how colonisation and immigration changed religion. We learned about the Closing the Gap initiative to understand First Nations people's relationship with Christianity. We designed a poster for the International Association of Evangelical Chaplains that will help our college close the gap in the wider community. In my poster, I added at the top facts about the history of positive government policies compared to the negative ones. I then gave some information about present policies moving forward. You can also see the posters that my colleagues Mackenzie and Jessica have created on the screen. Ultimately, the Catholic Church advocates for fairness and equality. As a nation, we can all play our part towards a reconciled community. Thank you.
Thanks, Sirith, for sharing your thoughts with us. As we come to the end of our assembly, I would like to say I've enjoyed being a part of the National Reconciliation Week, and I feel privileged to be here representing the college at this important commemoration of First Nations history and culture. And what about you, Billy? What was your experience hosting this assembly? After all, this week is about working together as non-Indigenous and First Nations people.
I agree. It was an opportunity for us to connect and talk about the importance of coming together as a community, and I feel that we are proud here at Ryan to share our culture. I will now pass over to Priya, who will wrap up the assembly.
Well done. What a great job by these two fabulous Year 11 students who are probably going to be captains next year. Please give them a big hand for the wonderful job today. It has been a real treat for us to have guest speakers today. I want to commend Georgia for her speech, Diaz for being courageous and sharing her poem, to all our presenters on stage who contributed to this assembly. I believe it is a testament to the college as every year we see so many students up here on stage in the spirit of reconciliation. Special thank you to our guest speaker, Ben, for being here and sharing his thoughts with us. A big thank you to the First Nations team. We are a big team, but we work really well and smoothly and collaboratively, filling gaps wherever needed in this great culmination of commemorations. Now, more than ever, we are proud to be sharing culture, telling stories, and coming together as a community here at Ryan Catholic College. I will now pass on to Johanna.
Thank you to everybody watching our live stream.